Hey everyone, and welcome into Talk Illini, your Illinois podcast for Orange and Blue news of the On 3 network. We appreciate you being here. Please do like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Definitely helps out the channel, helps us to know what it is that you do and maybe don't like that we talk about. I don't know if there's anything that we talk about you don't like, but we are going to be talking about a preview of Florida Gulf Coast, the game that Illinois is going to play against them here on Friday night. Brad Underwood just got done with his press conference and had an update on a few of the players and their injury status. Sonny, I'm going to kick it to you. Give us the update on what Brad talked about with the injury of a few of the players.
Yeah, let's start off with the not surprise. Obviously, Ty Rodgers is not going to play. Brandon Lee's not going to play. The Brad Underwood hinted at the post-game press conference on Monday that he didn't foresee Brandon Lee being able to suit up on Friday, and looks like that's confirmed. Again, he's got issues with that ankle, and hopefully it gets healed sooner rather than later. Mihailo Petrovic also out. Looks like this nagging injury that he has is going to keep him out through the weekend. I'll be honest, it doesn't sound very promising that he's going to be able to play against Texas Tech on Tuesday for that big time matchup at the State Farm Center. Andrej Stojaković still hasn't been through a full-time practice, so I'm going to correct myself on the previous episode, which I had heard he had. Apparently, it's by design. He hasn't gone through a full practice yet, and he's going to be another game time decision coming Friday. But, it's one of those where with Andrej, I guess I'm curious on your thoughts too. I want him to play because he's new to the team, and I want him to get acclimated to, playing with these guys before that big time matchup against Texas Tech. But at the same time, if the kid isn't ready, you need him 100% healthy for the long term, when it comes to this season. So game time decision. I'm not sure if he's going to play yet. We'll probably find out an hour or two before the game tips off.
Yeah, I do. I was thinking about this whole injury situation this morning because I kind of had a feeling like we weren't going to see Andrej Stojaković this weekend, and I kind of resigned myself to just say don't think about Mihailo Petrovic and Brandon Lee for a little while either. But seems like Stojaković is the one that's probably the closest. With him, most likely, I mean, we'll see what happens, game time decision, but most likely not going to play against Florida Gulf Coast. I do think there are some positives here for the team, and maybe we can get into those a little bit, which is that Illinois does not typically go through an entire season completely healthy, right? I mean, not many basketball teams do. It's just the matter of the sport, how many games you play, what goes on. And so for this team to get used to not having everybody out there and not being so reliant on an Andrej Stojaković with his scoring and things that he brings to the table, it could help this team to develop even more, especially somebody like Keaton Wagler. And so there are some positives there to that possibility. And then on the other side of things, with Mihailo Petrovic most likely not playing playing against Texas Tech, I don't think these early kind of out of conference games are the most important things in the world to get a team like Illinois into the NCAA tournament. Obviously, if Illinois is going to make the NCAA tournament, they're going to do it, based on conference play and being able to beat some other teams out there. But really, this is one that you want to win this game for seeding, and that stuff definitely helps. As we know, seeding is important, but I don't think this is like a dire moment right now in the season, especially when you get into conference play and trying to be able to dominate and win the conference later on in the season. So I'm not necessarily saying that's a positive, but it's something that I don't think I need to be as worried about, or maybe fans need to be as worried about. What's your thoughts on it, Sonny?
I think big picture wise, you're absolutely right. Big picture wise, what's important is these guys get healthy by the time December comes around. But at the same time, a lot of hype has been made about this non-conference schedule. Illinois plays, if not the toughest, one of the toughest in the entire country, and you want to go home with a couple W's from those big matchups, just because, not just from a team momentum side, but like even when it comes to the fans, right? Like Illinois football lost to Washington a couple weeks back, and you can see the excitement die down, even though it's still a really good football team, but because people are no longer considering it a college football playoff team. Well, this basketball team, we all know, or at least we should know, the ones that know ball know, the ceiling on this team is extremely high. But when you have people who may not be as obsessed, who are more just general type of fans, if they all of a sudden Illinois kicks off their non-conference schedule losing a game at home to Texas Tech, and it doesn't matter that Texas Tech is going to be ranked higher than Illinois. the hype is still going to be there. Illinois might be favored in that game. I'm really interested to find out what that spread is. But then a week later, you play a really tough Alabama team at the United Center. And then you're going to be playing Missouri later. You're going to be playing Tennessee later on this year. If you don't rack up at least a couple wins at that point, I just feel like the excitement that we're all feeling now about this Balkan experiment is going to wane a little bit. And, when you have a roster which is almost 50% new to that locker room, again, these guys are paid big bucks to figure this out. And I'm talking about Brad Underwood and the coaching staff. But you don't want a team that right now is sky high in confidence, at least what it perceives to be, losing a couple big time matchups. You don't want that to crack in any sort of way. You don't want the team to lose that confidence, lose that mojo coming into the Big Ten season. Because quite honestly, from what I've seen from the other big time teams in the conference, Illinois can be right up there with anybody, including the Purdues, including the Michigans. But the key is going to be get healthy physically, and also keep the right mindset mentally.
No, I totally agree with what you're saying, and I do think that the fan perspective is definitely something that needs to be considered there as well. I would hope that enough people, and I know Illinois is a very crazy fan base, just like many some other fan bases out there, but I would hope that enough people would be able to recognize what's going on here and be able to say, as long as they don't get blown out by Texas Tech. I throw everything I just said away. If they get blown out by Texas Tech, then yeah, we got a problem here and we got something we need to worry about. But if it's a close game with Texas Tech and there's a thought process of we were able to hang with them, and Texas Tech, they're what, a top 10 ranked team right
they're
now?
ranked number 10 as of this recording.
Right. So there should be enough understanding there to say, this is a team that's good, top 10 team. If we're close, if we're hanging with them, then we're going to show how this team can develop. You're also starting a freshman right now, Keaton Wagler, who is going to continue to develop, but he's already starting to, be a very mature player with the way he kind of plays. I mean, I was really impressed with Wagler. We didn't talk about him a whole lot in the post game, but I was really impressed with him this last game. He wasn't pressing. He wasn't trying to force things. He wasn't trying to do things on his own, which sure, against a team like Jackson State, that might be a little bit easier to do it against, but still, it's the first opportunity we really get to see him in some real game action. He was displaying that, proving it, and it's something that we can be excited about for this team and know that they definitely have these prospects coming in. Now, I do want to say, if Ben Humrichous is playing the way he played against Jackson State, this Illinois team has a shot to beat Texas Tech, very much so. I mean, I think part of the reason why we were relying on Andrej Stojaković in the offseason is because we didn't know who would be able to fill that 3 spot at times and kind of be the scorer. Ben Humrichous is not the scorer that Andrej Stojaković is, but he did have a very good game shooting, and he was a leading scorer in that game, 21 points coming off the bench. So if he's able to provide that for this team, I don't think it's some foregone conclusion that Illinois is just going to for sure lose to Texas Tech.
Yeah, I mean, great point. Like I actually talked about on my other show, Locked On Illini, Jake Davis played his role to a T in starting in place for Andrej Stojaković in the opening game. And sure, he's not the offensive weapon that Andrej is, but when you have David Mirkovic playing the way he is and Tomislav Ivišić being the playmaker he is, having a guy who can just clear the lane for those two guys to go to work, who can just stand at the corner and once their defender tries to help on David, just nail the open 3-pointer. Stuff like that, like it might work out in the better for the long term for a guy like Jake to develop his confidence in these sort of games. And so, I know Jake is one of those guys who, we all love. He's one of the first guys to confirm that he was coming back to this Illinois team. A lot of us were surprised that he was starting in the place, and it wasn't Ben Humrichous necessarily. I think that was a strategic move by Brad Underwood, which I kind of appreciate. But Jake Davis does what you need to do, and certainly Jake Davis is enough to beat Florida Gulf Coast on Friday evening. The question is going to be, is he going to be enough to beat Texas Tech? And quite honestly, we will do a game preview for that. We can focus that attention elsewhere, or at another time. But I think he is. I think Jake Davis, now in his 3rd year of college basketball, has proven enough that he's not going to lose you games, which is okay because this roster has enough playmakers on it to help you win those games.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think that's a great point. I think in addition to the playmakers, the thing that I can only kind of continue to see, and this is going to be kind of like a soft preview for Florida Gulf Coast. I don't know if we need to go through and kind of preview the entire thing, but some things that we do need to see from this team to kind of continue to give us that confidence, even if we don't have the playmaker in Andrej Stojaković, but we have the playmaker in other areas like you were talking about. We need to see the defense continue to play well. This Jackson State team does have some good players on it. I believe they had the former Swiak, however you pronounce it, player of the year or conference player of the year there on their team. So they do have some good players. I believe they had a McDonald's All-American on that team as well. So
Like a
they did
former
have some
Michigan
good,
player. Yeah.
yeah, former Michigan player. They did have some good players on that team, and judging by some of the other Big Ten basketball teams that I saw play early on, Illinois had some of the best defense that I saw out of any of the Big Ten teams that have played so far. I mean, you could be in much worse situations. Look at UCLA and the close game they played. I mean, heck, Oregon needed a buzzer beater to win their game. So this is an Illinois team that is coming out of the gates playing really well, even though they're not at full strength. The defense is definitely something you can take away through against some of these smaller school teams you play. And then the main thing I think you can take away, Sonny, and you can either tell me if you agree with this or not, but I think the main thing you can take away from these games is the rebounding. 61-19. We talked about it in the post game. 61-19 on the boards. I think it just shows how committed these guys are. Obviously, the three-point shooting was fantastic, but you can't rely on that every single game. But what you can rely on is good defense and rebounding. I think we saw both of those things against Jackson State, and I expect them to continue against Florida Gulf Coast.
Yeah, Jackson State was a tier below what Florida Gulf Coast is going to be on Friday. Florida Gulf Coast still isn't at the level that they should necessarily bother the Illini or really make it a game close. But like you said, there's our brethren in the Big Ten Conference would probably say the same about some of the opponents they played, and those games came down to the last moment. I was taking a look at their roster. They're not a very big roster, so this is one where Illinois got one of the biggest rosters in the entire country this year and a very talented front court. It looks good for Illinois. And for me, one of the things I've got my focus mainly on is even after that first game, which I think everyone can consider success, 113-55 victory over Jackson State. I had a lot of comments and people talking about on social media, here this offense goes again, just chucking up threes. And JR, I don't know if I believe that. From what I saw, and maybe I'm going to pay closer attention to it on Friday night, a lot of the threes last year were running down the court and hoisting it because it was open. Whereas this year on Monday, I saw a lot more planned threes in the offense type of threes. And I think that's what I'm going to focus on Friday evening, to keep an eye on that, because if you don't like seeing teams shoot 3-pointers and you're an Illinois fan, I feel really bad for you, because that's not going to change. It makes sense numbers wise, but it only makes sense if they're at the right moments and they're planned and they're by design. If they're not, then you're going to run into what happened last year, a team that shot more threes than almost anybody in the country and yet made less than almost any other team in the country. And that can't happen again this year, but I think Brad Underwood knows that.
Yeah, no, for sure. And you're exactly right talking about it's not the same as it was last year. I understand the sentiment from people, and I'm not going to come at anybody for saying that. However, it was not the same way. The ball movement was much, much better. Obviously, Kasparis Jakonis, fantastic player for the Illini last season, but he did have a tendency at times to come up the floor and just kind of put one up a little bit on it and kind of do that himself. You don't see that same kind of thing out of the current ball handlers and Kylan Boswell and Keaton Wagler for this team, and Thomas Ivišić, Big T up there at the top of the key. He is looking to distribute more often than not, and so you're seeing better passing from this team. Now, obviously, we'll see what happens when they play a more difficult opponent, but at least to start the season, you're seeing better passing, you're seeing better shot selection, and I think that the guys are trusting each other more now than maybe they did at times last season. I think that was something that did get to that team a little bit, is kind of, well, he's not hitting his shots, I need to take my shot. Some of that stuff could have sunk into it a little bit. At least it looked that way from the way they were playing. But this year seems like these guys trust each other. Seems like it's a much more team basketball focus more on moving the ball around. I like it, and I hope we see more of it against this Florida Gulf Coast team. Is there anything else you're going to be looking for in this game coming up before they play Texas Tech?
Not so much. Again, I'll have my eyes on whether Andrej is playing or not. If he is, I'd love to see how they fit him in the offense. One of my favorite parts of watching this Illini team is just a free-flowing way of the way the ball moves around. And Andrej isn't necessarily that type of player. So how do they fit him into this offense is something I got my eye on. But I did want to remind the viewers that this game's going to be on Peacock. So don't look for it on the Big Ten channel or anything like that. It's going to be an exciting game, and JR and I will, one of us will have a post-game recap on after that. So make sure you're tuned in here. Make sure you like this video, and make sure you're subscribed to the channel.
There you go. Yes, go on over to the Peacock, get that for yourself, and you can watch it there. It's not on YouTube TV. All right, I know there's it's like herding cats and dogs out here trying to find where you're gonna watch your sports at right now with everything going on, YouTube TV, Peacock, and everything else. But I'll tell you what, you can pay attention to tonight. Before it is tonight, Jackson State plays Louisville. So if you want to see how good of a team, Illinois is versus Jackson State, you can kind of scout a little bit with how Louisville plays against Jackson State. I'm sure nobody will overreact to anything then by seeing that, and we'll all just have fun with it. So thank you for watching, everybody. We appreciate it. Go check out Orange and Blue News over at On3, and you can always check back here at Talk Illini on YouTube for all of your Illinois basketball, football updates, and everything else that is Illini athletics. Appreciate you being here. Have a good one.